Well, last time we got caught in the weeds of a pretty unfamiliar theological topic. So today I wanted to talk about something much easier marriage. Now, why on earth this topic? And why this book to go along with it? Well, over the summer, I was looking at a list of the top 10 Christian books, and this was number 1 Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. I considered it for a while and decided maybe it was a good idea to try out some of these classics and see if I still like reading fiction. I did, and I was blown away. I found so much to learn, along with so much enjoyment from the characters, plot twists, suspense, and even theological ideas, all from a made up story. I found my attention span grew so much, and my dopamine receptors were being set to actually enjoy the simple things in life. I got invested in made up marriages as a math major. So now, if you would like to hear what this single 20-year-old has learned about marriage from a book written about 150 years ago, you're in the right place. We will go through my top 5 scenes and contrast them with some parallel scenes from the book, focusing on 2 pairs of characters, Anna Karenina and Vronsky, and Levin and Kitty. They are meant to contrast a tragic, passionate situationship to a beautiful marriage. Now, Levin is a farmer who initially falls in love with Kitty, but she turns down his proposal for Prince Vronsky. Anna is a married woman who is definitely a flirt, but she catches the interest of the Prince Vronsky. Now, there are many other characters in this book, but if I were to do an entire deep dive on them, it would take forever, and I don't remember everything well enough. This book has made me both insanely nervous and excited about the prospect of marriage, even though I'm far from it, and I hope you can get a fuller picture of it wherever you are. So without further ado, here are the top 5 things I hope to take away from Anna Karenina. After Levin's humiliating rejection, he returns to his farm and gets back to work. He tries not to dwell on the past, but works to improve the lives of the peasants who work on his farm. He learns how they go about their day, and even joins them in mowing. He also realizes how freeing this work is compared with the intellectual arguments and readings he has to do in high-class society. There are many arguments that Levin has about improving the peasants' conditions, while keeping in mind how life actually works in Russian society. On the other hand, we have Vronsky pursuing Anna, even though at first she says she cannot be in an affair. She eventually relents, and they fall in love. From here, they enter into a frantic, scandalous affair of sneaking around, full of lies and deception. After about a year, Levin returns to Moscow and happens to be at an event with Kitty. This time, the wounds have healed, and there is no pesky prince in the way. He proposes, and everyone is overjoyed with the answer. So our first lesson is, don't rush against resistance. Now, there is a word of caution here. We should not be patient and not rushing in hopes that they change their mind or we get a good outcome from it. In fact, this is basically the exact opposite of what Levin does. He returns to his farm, focuses his energies on improving other people's lives, and he happens to meet Kitty again. But if this hadn't happened, he still would have found purpose and meaning in his life, regardless. So we have to be careful to not put people on a pedestal, and we should always be doing the right things and respecting the person regardless of the outcome. In this case, it was a happy outcome, so we'll continue on to our next lesson. So Levin and Kitty have just gotten married. Everyone at their wedding is celebrating, and a few of them are reminiscing about their own marriages. The first few weeks seemed wonderful, and since then it seems like people just fell out of love. It seems their life is constant bickering, and threats of affairs loom. Flash forward a few weeks, and Levin and Kitty are enjoying their life together, but they don't quite understand each other. They did not expect their life to be constant misunderstandings and fighting, and it seems as if everyone at their wedding was right. The honeymoon phase was just a fantasy. These weeks of on and off difficulties reach a peak when one day Levin comes home exceptionally late. Kitty is very hurt by this, and Levin starts to defend himself. However, as he does so, he looks at her and remembers why he married her. He loves her. Maybe he had a million excuses for being late, but his number one priority is right in front of him. So he decides to not fight this time. Levin does not need to stand up for some huge principle here. and he apologizes, and Kitty calms down right away. It de-escalates much of their misunderstandings and simmers down weeks of fighting. Now, this works because it isn't a hill to die on, and it takes a lot of maturity to recognize what isn't and what is. Now, contrast this with whenever Anna and Vronsky get in a fight, which happens much more as the book progresses. There is a noticeable pattern where Vronsky only apologizes as a last resort, and usually with much anger and exasperation. This usually serves to escalate any situation, and whenever it calms Anna down, she's not ready to fully forgive and harbors a grudge. So our next lesson is, it's not about winning the fight. Now, both sets of lovers agree on this next point. Do not let society or anyone else get between you two. Now, in Anna and Vronsky's case, they are in the wrong, and society is mostly right. They visit an opera, and Anna overhears someone calling her disgraceful, while Vronsky is in a panic, as he does not think she should have gone out in public like this. This situation just causes more stress and division in their relationship. But the good side to this, one of my favorite scenes, is when Levin and Kitty have some visitors over, and one of them flirts with Kitty. Now, in Russian culture at this time, it was considered normal and maybe even flattering in high-class society, but Levin is not having it. Now, Levin decides to give this man another chance, and he goes out hunting with him to get to know him better. They have a lot of fun, and it seems like things are going well. However, as soon as they return, this gentleman does it again. Levin is at this point overcome with jealousy, and he talks to Kitty about it. She says she cannot stop him without causing a scene, but of course she is only in love with Levin, and to think anything else would be ridiculous. Levin decides that this has been too much, and he won't have someone staying in their house while flirting with his wife. So, he arrives calmly with a sense of purpose. He tells this man to leave, and does not bother giving an explanation. He feels it should be obvious. Their mutual friend is concerned that Levin does not give reasons for kicking out a guest. But, as I said, Levin feels this should be obvious and common sense to not flirt with another man's wife, and is fed up enough to continue kicking him out. So our lesson is, never let another person get between you two. Now I want to share what is probably the most famous, well-written, and also scarily accurate scene of Anna and Vronsky. They have been fighting for chapters upon chapters. Anna is growing increasingly more paranoid that Vronsky doesn't love her, and Vronsky is not helping by becoming more and more exasperated with her. He desires to be away from her more and more, and this only confirms Anna's fears. Right as they are on the verge of finalizing Anna's divorce and being able to live the selfish life that they have upset so many others for, these fights become too much. Their relationship was doomed to fail, and fail it does. We see Anna's stream of consciousness as she darts all over town, trying to find Vronsky and yell at him, or get back together with him, or anything. It becomes clear here that these people are not well. They did not plan well, but had their very hopes wrapped up in a selfish dream. Anna deserted her husband and son, and has brought her new daughter into a disastrous situation, all for a passionate affair. Vronsky broke Kitty's heart in the beginning, and has continued to confirm and perpetuate the stereotype that high-class citizens are unable to respect marriage. Our lesson from this is that every relationship needs a plan and a commitment to that plan. Our final lesson comes from my favorite scene in the entire book. Levin has been having faith struggles during the last few years. He has been reading as much science and philosophy as he can in order to understand this universe and his place in it. Church feels like empty rituals, and sometimes he shows up just for his family. He's terrified of death and is no closer to understanding this life after months, even years of reading. During this time, Kitty keeps herself busy by ordering new tablecloths, fixing the house up, and working on seemingly meaningless tasks to Levin. He does not understand how or why these things are so important to her, but he doesn't question it. Then he gets the news that his brother Nikolai is very ill. He begins to fall into the same trap that Vronsky fell into. He tells Kitty to stay home while he goes to visit him. Now, Kitty refuses, and it seems like there's going to be another fight. However, since Levin knows that it's not about winning, he relents. Kitty comes with him, and they are off to Moscow again. They arrive at a dusty inn, and Levin first visits his brother alone. Nikolai is unrecognizable. Levin does all he can to keep his composure, but this is too much for his spiritually frail condition. He returns to his room, explaining to Kitty how awful the situation is and how he thinks Nikolai is going to die any day. Now Kitty decides to visit him, and her reaction is much different. Where Levin could barely recognize his brother, she simply sees a man in need. Where Levin can only philosophize and worry, she sets about caring and working. She cares for this dying man in a way that the man who thinks about death and mortality daily cannot. This stuns Levin and sets him off on a journey toward eventually reclaiming his simple, childlike faith in God. This story illustrates that you need a spiritual companion to fight alongside. So Anna Karenina and Prince Vronsky depict a broken, selfish relationship with passion and lust at the center. Levin and Kitty are polar opposites, bearing with one another through all of their trials and weaknesses. They show how marriage is one of the scariest yet most sanctifying experiences for two people. They exemplify true passion, humility, and commitment throughout every scene that they are in, and it is a breath of fresh air in a society that seems to want to tear them down at every chance. These constant patterns in the book paint a blueprint for a marriage that lasts, as well as haunting situations to avoid for the sake of your family. Now, if you don't want to take my advice on marriage, perhaps you can listen to another single man's advice, which is often quoted at weddings. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always hopes, always perseveres. And at the end of this book, we are not left with just the sad, broken marriage of Anna Karenina, but we see two figures who love each other, staring at the night sky and pondering faith. Kitty is not only a great friend and complement to Levin's social life, but also his companion in every spiritual battle, even if she never knows the extent of it. Levin and Kitty will continue to get in fights, and their faith may be tested again and again. We're never told how their story ends, but we can infer from the first few years that a marriage with a foundation like this will not fail. In fact, finishing the verse from earlier, I would even go so far as to say, love never fails.